Hey, it's JoAnna, and I just finished being interviewed at the Positive Mindset Entrepreneurs Club. We have a 3-day summit, which has been absolutely fabulous. You should check it out. And I just finished speaking there. So I'm still rolling. I'm still rolling. I'm used to speaking for longer periods of time. This was about a 25, 28, whatever minute interview. It was so much fun. We had so much fun. We talked about the difference between pessimism and optimism. We talked about the story, my journey, how I got here, how did I become a happiness officer and happiness coach and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm motivated at this moment since I'm doing my fabulous book review section. Um, and I'm having fun with it. I will tell you, there are 4 boxes of books that are outside my house already packed up to go to Goodwill, or I think it's the Cancer Society. Um, it's moving's a bitch. Moving's a bitch. And I'm very attached to my books. So some of them will never leave me. So I went to my other bookcase as soon as I got off the air and to get this book, because this was the book that really started it all for me. This is Learned Optimism by my teacher, Martin Seligman. How to Change Your Mind and Change Your Life. Now, I first read this book years ago. Years ago, I was still back in Seacliff, Long Island. Up until that point, I thought I was a very positive person. I thought I was an optimist until I read the book and realized that I wasn't an optimist. In fact, optimism and pessimism are both explanatory styles. It's the way we explain the world to ourselves. Now, when optimists look at the world and a negative situation, they see that situation as specific and temporary. But when a pessimist looks at a situation, they see that situation as permanent and pervasive. And here's how I like to tell the story. I live in South Florida, and every season, so in other words, when it's cold up north, they all come down here. Everything changes down here. And the attitudes of the people that live down here change, and the traffic changes, and the restaurant, everything changes. It's like living in two different places. So I'll call them tourists. When a tourist comes down here in season and it starts raining, the optimist is going to look up and say, "Oh, well, you know what? It's raining. What a good opportunity to go to that brand new museum they have in Boca Raton, or the brand new museum they have in Palm Beach, or whatever." They look for other things. They look for something positive. Oh, good! I've been in the sun all day. It's a good time for me to get out of the sun. They're going to look for what's positive in the situation. They're going to see it as temporary and very specific. Well, I also hear in Florida that it only rains for an hour or two and then it's done. And honestly, it only rains sometimes for 15 minutes and then the sun's back out. But a pessimist, on the other hand, will turn around and say something like, "Oh no, it always rains on my vacation. Every time I come down here, this happens to me." They make it very personal. And there's no, this is only going to happen for 15 minutes. It becomes what it is. So a pessimist has a view of the world that something that's negative is going to last for a long time. And they usually actually make it last for a long time. So I was telling that story in the interview today. And that's why I was moved to go get this book, which will never leave me, by the way. This is not my original copy. This is my second copy. The original copy was all marked up. But I had the pleasure and the honor of working with Dr. Martin Seligman. Marty, to those of us who love him. He's basically the guy that started positive psychology. Now, there's one really beautiful story about Marty and about his daughter. Marty has a lot of kids. I think he has, well, if I'm correct, I think he's got like 8 kids. But minimum, I think there's 6. So Marty was out in the garden one day and he was pulling weeds. And Martin is a very serious psychologist. He's one of the smartest psychologists in the whole world, even back then. Smart, smart, smart. Academically acclaimed, but never a very friendly guy, as I understand. So Marty was out in the yard pulling weeds, and his young daughter, Nikki, came out to pull weeds with him. And he's very seriously pulling those weeds out of the garden. While Nikki, on the other hand, who's all of maybe 6 years old, Nikki is throwing the weeds in the air and she's singing a song and she's twirling around and she's having a grand old time. And her dad yelled at her. So she looks up at her dad and she said, "Why do you have to be such a grump?" And that kind of shocked him. And he said, "That's just the way I am." And she said, "You know what? Do you remember last year when I was 5 years old or 6 years old, whatever it was, and everybody said I whined too much? Well, I stopped myself from whining. And if I can stop whining, you can stop being a grump." Boom. Marty took that to heart. And he started investigating a lot of things, actually, and discovered, this is a major discovery, that all the literature out there had been funded, the current literature 20 some odd years ago, had been funded after World War II when men were coming home from the service wounded, shell-shocked, as they called it back then. So all the literature was to sort of how to get people from zero to normal. And that's what Marty realized. And when he became president of the American Psychological Association, I think it was 1998, he stood up in front of all these people and said, "I'm a damn good therapist. But the best I can do is get someone from zero to normal. I don't know how to get somebody who's normal and get them to a +10." Because the literature really didn't exist. So he began scouring the literature and he began looking for money. And he raised, I hope you're sitting down, he raised $40 million for the study of what was to become positive psychology. Which is why you see so many books out there now, which is why there are courses all over the place, which is why happiness is now way more accessible than it was 20 years ago. Marty's trained a lot of people like me. Marty's trained a lot of master's program people that are similar to me. Marty and Tal Ben-Shahar and all the fabulous people in this field have to get out there to spread the word that we have more control of our happiness than we ever thought we did. But I got to tell you, because I've been teaching this now for a long time, it all starts with mindfulness. It all starts with mindfulness. It all starts with presence. It all starts with breath. Taking that deep breath to ask yourself, where am I? How am I feeling? Because we rule from one thing to another, one thing to another. I'm a born and bred New Yorker, even though I've been down here for 30 years, and that has slowed me down. But nonetheless, I still carry that rhythm in my body to some degree. But get her done. Get on to the next thing. What's next? As opposed to the, let's take just a couple of moments and be present right here in this moment. Let's feel the feeling of being present in this moment. Let's savor a breath. Let's relax our shoulders. Let's think of something we love. Last night I was taking my nightly walk on the beach, and there was a storm coming up. So I was a little reluctant to go down to the water because I know the signs. And the skies got very dark and the wind picked up. But then, as I got closer to the beach, I saw something I needed to go investigate further, and that was a rainbow. It wasn't the best rainbow I've ever seen. In fact, it was kind of muted rainbow. But the contrast of the rainbow against the dark clouds stopped me in my tracks. It was one of those moments where you just had to stand there and savor it and think about it. How does that happen? Out of these dark clouds, these beautiful colors. So being happier takes presence. It does. Now, we have a happiness set point. Each and every one of us has a genetic happiness set point. So some of us are born happier than others. I was not. I'm more genetically linked to a pessimist than I am to an optimist. So in my own life, I have to think more about happiness. So this call I just got off of, this is the Positive Mindset Entrepreneurs Club. And these are all people who run businesses, small and large, who want to really focus on keeping a positive mindset. Deliberately, that's a good word. Deliberately keeping a positive mindset. I go there for sustenance because I still slip, fall, go over into the negativity corner every once in a while, because I am still training my mind to always ask, what's good about this? What's special here? What's remarkable today? What's fun today? How can it be any better than this? There's been, in my head, my mind, there's been a language change over time so that I'm speaking more positively. And of course, teaching helps. I must say that teaching really helps. When I go on a Zoom call, when I go on a stage, when I'm sitting in a room full of people and I'm facilitating a meeting, that reinforces what I do and what I'm doing. So it's actually important to have conversations about happiness. It's important to have conversations about positivity. It's important to ask us positive questions that are appreciating and expanding and exhilarating. So I'm back to my book here for just a moment, and then I gotta go. This fabulous book, this fabulous man, this fabulous piece of work really has changed my life. Let me tell you a tiny bit more of the story, though, and then I do have to go. I was sitting here in this very space, and I'll be leaving here. Those of you who are regular followers, you know I'll be moving, so that's why I'm reading all these books to you and letting you know about all the books I'm letting go of. Sitting here and had got myself on what was then called a telesummit. Anyway, it was all done. There was none of this with the camera. There was no Zoom. It was pre-Zoom, and we were doing a teleclass. Someone I know had sent me an email and said, I think you'd really like this teleclass tomorrow night. Didn't say much more, but some reason I went. Marty got on the call and started talking. As soon as I heard Marty's voice, a shock of electricity went through the top of my head, all the way down through my body, through my seat, down through the floor. I'm on the second floor. I'm sure she felt the shock below me because that shock of electricity went all the way down into the ground. And I just had to say to myself, oh God, what just happened? By the time I was halfway through the call, I realized that even though I wasn't planning on buying anything, I was a goner. So I did. I waited. I didn't, no quick action bonuses, thank God. But I waited, got off the call, sat with it, went back to my notes, and then went to my heart. And I knew that working with Marty would change my life because of how the book changed my life. And 6 months later, I believe it was, I became an authentic happiness coach and loved every minute of it. And there was a bunch of us. We, in addition to the classes, we had pods that we attended with other students. And our pod became so close that we started something called the Positive Workplace Alliance. And we were an international organization and supporting one another in the work that we did. And whenever one of us, and I'll raise my hand for that, where's my hand? I'll raise my hand for that, wanted to write a program or do something, we just called a mastermind together. And these beautiful people came together. So every time I teach positive leadership, I am so appreciative of how many people gave me input to put that program together, of how many brains it took to put that program together into a coherent whole. And it exists together as a coherent whole at positiveenergizer.com, where the practice of positive leadership lives. It's an online course. And the way I like doing that online course more than anything else is facilitating it with groups of people in something I call wisdom circles. So if you're interested in what those wisdom circles are and the results of being in your group, in a group with people who are in a wisdom circle after studying positive leadership, just give me a call. Now, a couple of other things I'm going to request. Please like this video. Please subscribe to my videos and come back frequently. And check me out on LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm in a bunch of places. And my website is returnonhappiness.com, because you know what? There is a return on happiness. So thanks for listening. You can learn optimism. Bye.